Hey, okay, let's talk about forgiveness and boundaries. Okay, it's really, really important. Make sure you listen up. Hey, I'm Lydia. I used to be an ordinary stay-at-home mom and wife. We had 2 kids, and for 3 years, everything was perfect until we got pregnant again. But this time with quadruplets. There was so much stress going from a family of 4 to a family of 8 overnight, so I created a system for renewing our relationships. This channel is dedicated to sharing that system, every single part of it. I love teaching how to connect, manage emotions, and turn it all into growing together times. You're going to find all that information right here. Okay, forgiveness is something that has to happen if you're going to have a connected relationship. It has to happen. There's no way around it. There's just not an enjoyable experience as long as there's not forgiveness. Yeah, we all make mistakes. Every single human on the planet makes mistakes, including me. Including me. Oh my goodness. We all make mistakes, right? And sometimes, I hope not very often, but sometimes the mistakes are kind of done out of revenge because we can't forgive. We go down this big spiral of a path that the actions and mistakes, because if we're stuck in this anger and frustration, if they become intentional, it's not really a mistake anymore, but creating that intention is a mistake, okay? But we want to forgive and set safe boundaries, okay? We don't get to change the consequences of our actions. Everything has a consequence. Even if we get forgiven and we forgive, there's still something to do about it. This still happened. If you spill water, the floor still gets wet. Okay, the cup still gets broken if you drop it. I guess it wouldn't be a cup if it's a glass. Glasses break. Anyway, we all make mistakes. We all want to be forgiven. Everyone who makes a mistake really, really wants to be forgiven. But how do we do this? There's a couple of pieces that I've seen coming up around, especially in social media. I've had some comments that we just need to talk about this and clear it out and not have any misunderstandings at all about this. Okay, so if you have ever said or thought, I will never forgive, please change it, because that means you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be connected, and you're never, ever going to find that peace that you really do deserve. You deserve to have peace and happiness in your relationships. And as long as you're saying, I will never forgive for anything, whatever it is, you're going to have turmoil inside. And if you're on the other side saying, well, if I am forgiving, then they need to forgive me because it's a two-way street and I forgave, so they have to forgive. Well, that's just growing more bitterness, isn't it? If we're demanding one way or another, we're taking away that agency that is so vital to a relationship, so vital to have that choosing into the relationship. And that commitment is a choice to have happiness and to have peace and cooperation and communication and all the wonderful things that come from being in a great relationship. You have to have agency. You have to have choosing in. Okay, so you chose each other to begin with, right? You decided that you loved each other and liked each other enough that you're going to get married and make a commitment to each other. And it's okay to keep that commitment and to still have that feeling of love. Things happen along the way, and how we resolve it, you get it back. It doesn't have to be vengeful and spiteful and hurt. We get hurt when people make mistakes that hurt us. It just happens, part of life, but we can move through it and forgive and move on and still have these safe boundaries that if this happens again, then XYZ will happen. Or I'm going to choose to react this way or that way. Not just an unplanned hurt emotional reaction, but a logical, thought out, intentional choice of what to do. Okay. I have a client right now, and addictions are hard. It's really hard to deal with addictions. And a lot of times this is what's coming up. Somebody's addicted to something and they make bad choices. They make choices that hurt, right? And this one particular client, her husband is drinking. Well, okay, the logical reaction to that is, if you're drinking, you can't drive the kids to school. So she's going to have to take over if he has that action again. It's not a blaming or judgment or anything else. It's just, this is happening, so then this has to happen. It's the natural consequence. And there's other emotions tied to it, of course, but the logical piece has to be there too. We have to have a logical piece as well, so that we can move through these emotions and get to the other side and find these boundaries that are actually there to help you express your emotions and be safe. Because when we're needing to be forgiving, when we have to forgive someone, it's because we've been hurt and we don't feel safe. It creates this unsafe feeling. And a lot of my clients will refer to it as not comfortable. I don't feel comfortable with this. Well, if you're not feeling comfortable, that's probably because it's not safe. Okay? So being willing to forgive and then having an outcome, an expected consequence, if you will, is really, really important to create this feeling of safety. And I've told you before, and I'll tell you again, the foundation for any kind of communication, if anyone's going to communicate about anything at all, there has to be safety. We're not going to open up. When we say, oh no, you've been drinking again, they shut down, they're defensive, we're all emotional, and there's all this other yucky stuff in between that we can't reach out and get through and communicate until that part's cleared out. And guess what? That means you have to be willing to forgive. Now, let's define forgiving. First of all, it does not mean accepting that bad behavior. It does not mean that you love the drinking or whatever other addiction it is. It does not mean that you accept it. It means you're not going to hold on to that feeling, that judgment, that pain, that bitterness, and you're not going to go vengeful and revenge in future stuff. You're going to say, okay, that is a thing that I'm not attached to, not emotionally attached to this experience. And usually, like every time someone is having an addiction, some people call it self-medicating, is filling a need, okay? There's something there that is missing or is trauma-based. There's a need there, and it's addictive, okay? But we don't have to be emotionally attached to that. And there are limits. If it's abusive, if there's abuse tied to these experiences, we want to make sure that boundary is in place too, from a logical place, so that we're not emotionally reacting, but we are choosing the action instead of just freaking out and being crazy. Okay, so addictions aside, forgiveness is just for everything. When somebody cuts us off in traffic, we got to forgive them. Okay, there's so many different things, but when we hold on to it and we say, I'm never going to forgive, that doesn't hurt them. It hurts us. It only hurts us and the relationship that we get to have with them. It's like holding on to the poison and expecting them to hurt from it. They hurt from it because we are bitter and we're ugly inside, and we are just gross to be around. So my most obvious experience with this was actually with someone, it wasn't my husband, but I found this super, super ugly bitterness inside of me growing. And then it kind of leaks out into all of my other things and my other relationships. This is what happens when we have something inside. If we have joy inside and love and forgiving, then that leaks out into everything else too. But at this time, I was so bitter and angry. And we went to church, and this person that I was hurt by, that I needed to forgive, his family walks in, and I think, his kids aren't even cute. Look at, wow, this adorable little girl, 4 years old, and I am judging her because I had a bad experience with her father. Totally unrelated. He had no idea that he had hurt me or embarrassed me or anything. He had no idea, but it was affecting me so much that I couldn't even see the adorable little girl for who she was. How much is that bitterness affecting everything else in your life? Now, when I was able to forgive, I knew that I had forgiven him all the way when they came in several Sundays later and I said, oh, look at how cute she is. Look at her hair. Look at what she's cute again. I did it. I forgave him. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, enlightening happiness. And I want everyone to be able to have that joy and that peace, especially when you're having a hard time forgiving your spouse, because it does affect everything else. It really, really affects every single thing, everything. If you think about it, you'll know this is true. It's going to affect how you shop at the grocery store. It's going to affect how you interact with the bagger putting your groceries in the bag, if you have those at your grocery store. It's going to affect how you interact in traffic while you're driving or standing on the bus, or it's going to sour everything around you if you contain and hold on to the bitterness. So let's be willing to forgive. It does not mean that you accept that behavior. It means you're going to let go of that pain. Okay, let it go. And let's not be demanding, because that creates an emptiness. If we're demanding that we get forgiven, then we're emotionally tied to that too much. All right, stay tuned. We'll talk about it more. I know this one's getting a little bit long, so we'll talk about more forgiveness stuff. There's so much in forgiving. It is so, so important. There's forgiveness languages. There's all sorts of stuff I got to tell you about. So stay tuned, follow, like, and subscribe, and we'll get through all of these things together. All right, talk to you soon.